Continuing our discussion of X Windows and window managers and graphical desktops, let's talk about desktops specifically. Now, we've looked at the minimal window managers that really don't provide us a lot of bells and whistles, but they help us get the job done. But let's take a look at desktops. Desktops bring fully featured interfaces to us, the kind that we're used to seeing in Microsoft Windows, full Linux distributions, and so forth. And desktops usually bring with them a whole lot of features. Sometimes they bring their own graphic applications that are specific to the desktops, and they also do all the things that window managers do, and a lot of them incorporate certain window managers as well to help them do this. They manage Windows and all their interactions with the applications in the system and the user. They take care of sizing, drawing on the screen, graphics, and so forth. Graphical desktops require a lot of system resources, which is basically why you don't really see them in server implementations so much. You more or less see them in desktop solutions where users are actually doing productivity, word processing, checking email, surfing the web, so forth. GNOME, KDE, and the Common Desktop Environment, or CDE, are the most common desktops that you'll see. GNOME and KDE are run on different variations of Linux and can also be run on some Unixes, and CDE is most often seen in operating systems such as Solaris. Let's go ahead and take a look at the GNOME desktop, and we're going to be looking at OpenSUSE 11, the open source version of SLES, which we saw earlier, put out by Novell. This is the community distribution version, and it's a full desktop, full GNOME desktop that's been installed, where we have all the bells and whistles that we used to sync with Microsoft Windows. Okay, we're in OpenSUSE 11. And basically this is a full GNOME desktop that we've installed. It looks more like what we're used to seeing with things like Microsoft Windows, and if you've played with any other Linux distributions. We have all the bells and whistles here that we could want. We have sound, we have video capability, we can play DVDs, we can also do productive things such as write email, word process, and so forth. But taking a quick tour, we see that we have the icons here that basically get us to the system. We can look at the folder structures and so forth. We can look at different devices. We also have the tools that we need to administer the system, and these aren't just tools that we have to use the command line for, although some of them may be better used at the command line. Some of them do have command line equivalents. YAST, for example, is the configuration utility for OpenSUSE 11, and it has a command line version also, but its graphical version looks fairly good and fairly well. It works fairly well. It can do a lot of things for us. But we can do a lot of the things we do in the GUI that we would normally do at the command line without knowing the command line switches and things of that nature. Now, and that's kind of why a lot of Unix purists and diehard Linux users will tell you that the graphical user interface is fine, but where you really demonstrate your knowledge and understanding of the system is by being able to navigate at the command line and use it and make your system do what you want it to do and be able to administer it from the command line. GUIs are great, but they do separate the novices and the beginners from the experts. And there are a lot of things that, there are a lot of good reasons to be able to know the command line, and that's why we've, up until this point, really stressed working at the command line in Unix. And that's simply because you get to know the system a little bit better, you understand what's going on under the hood a little bit better, and you probably can do more at the command line than you can do with a simple graphical interface. It presents you the information it needs you to have, that it thinks is the most common that anyone would want, but not specifically what you might need in your particular situation. So that's one of the big advantages of command line administration over graphical user interfaces. However, they both have their place. If you're a beginner or novice, certainly learning the GUI, a part of the system, is a lot easier and probably gets you started a lot quicker. And even as an advanced user, sometimes using the GUI is just fairly quick and fairly easy, especially when everything's working right and you don't need to get into the weeds with the command line. But if you're going to troubleshoot, if you're going to build from scratch, then understanding the command line utilities and how they're used is a lot better to do if you can. So we've just basically looked at a quick desktop, GNOME desktop as a matter of fact, in OpenSUSE 11, and we've discussed how that compares to the command line in terms of advantages and disadvantages. But you'll probably want to wind up learning both, command line and GUI, although I would tend to put the emphasis on the command line if at all possible if you're going to become a serious Unix or Linux user.